Sharon, you'll know who's in the room and who's online. Thank you. For agenda number 3, we're gonna add a 3 or a 4A. Maybe we'll put, have Ken give us an update on all the excitement from yesterday, right after public participation. And actually, let's do it at 5A after approval of minutes. So is there anybody from the public here that wants to address this? See any? Recognized? Oh, is that who it is? Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, seeing none, on to approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes from the March 20 meeting.
I make motion to approve minutes, March 20th meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much. And so Kim, tell us about what all the everything happened.
So yesterday about 1:46, my times may be off a little bit. We were made aware of a fire in a utility closet in the surgical services suite. Mainly the main OR corridor where the OR rooms are. There was a leak in that utility closet. Facilities was in there, trying to ascertain where the leak was coming from. My understanding is there was some electrical heat tape that was unseen. I'm understanding that maybe it was, that part of the building is a little bit older, like the 80s. And so the heat tape understanding was inside, like first, and then insulation around. So when they went in to identify where the leak was to move the insulation away, they unknowingly cut through the electrical heat tape. My understanding that is what caused the arc. And then the fire started. The facility person that happened, that did that, immediately recognized it, called a code red for a fire, grabbed the fire extinguisher, and immediately started trying to extinguish the fire. I do want to recognize that CCFR, after the fact, said had he not done that step, we would have been in a lot worse circumstances. So kudos to that employee. Once CCFR got on scene, there was still some smoke coming out from under the door. We did have active ORs going. CCFR got on scene and quickly gained access and notified us that there was flames still in the ceiling space. So at that point, we did evacuate the operating room. There was no injuries other than the person who started extinguishing the fire, who was treated and released. And we evacuated the ER or the OR laterally. So both of those patients, one went to our critical care unit and one went to our OB unit. And then we immediately evacuated all departments in that corridor, which was physical rehab, infusion, and then all surgical services to include PACU and safe day care. It didn't take long for them to get it under control. And once that happened, we were able to kind of go into demobilizing mode a little bit. We're still in ICS because our ORs are still currently down. We have one OR that we can use in our OB unit that can be used also for trauma. So we're prepared for that. And we've reached out to all of our community partners, our medevac teams, and the hospitals that we medevac to let them know the state that we're in. And I did notify Deb this morning to give her an update. And then prior to this meeting, I was talking to Mayor Weldon, and so she's aware as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Well, in terms of the state of the surgical procedure, were these patients in at the time that they were vaccinated?
One was completely finished, getting ready to go to recovery. And unfortunately, the other one had just started. So we're navigating that. But all the patients had great care. The staff were phenomenal. Shout out to the whole OR crew who acted very quickly and mobilized patients out there.
So in the surgery that was already started, is there some possible lawsuit down the line or where?
I can't answer that. I have not been able to reach out to the patient as of yet. We are talking to the surgeons involved. The patients did have disclosure that would happen. And so we're trying to follow up on that. And that's something that
Was that an elective procedure?
I'm not sure if it was or not.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they'll be back online Wednesday?
If all things go well, OR will be up and running on Wednesday. The challenge we have is that in our pack room, it stores all of our sterile instruments that are wrapped. Some are in double plastic and et cetera. Firefighters did have to gain access to that, and so there's contamination. And so we've made the decision, we have 3 areas that would need to have supplies taken out of and reprocessed and disposed of and replaced because they are on in the fire corridor side. And so the same day care is on the opposite side. There's a fire door, so we're not worried about any kind of contamination. But between the smoke, the fire extinguisher, and all the installation and stuff and water damage, we've made the decision to replace all that. So Materials is working with our OR team right now to get some of that stuff Gold Streak to us quickly to replace. And then the team's working on re-sterilizing trays, starting with the things that we need to sustain to fix life and limb, and then work back from there.
Yeah. And we're working with insurance, obviously.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. I'm thinking about when Virginia Mason had their mold issue in their ORs, several years ago, what a bear that was to re-sanitize, get everything. We're not facing that kind of hurdle, are we, with something like this?
No, not that I know of, that I was aware of this morning, at least in the report I got this morning from our facilities team. They think everything should be up and going and settled by Tuesday. So Tuesday evening, so we can open Wednesday. They've already started replacing all the air filters and all of that and get the air balancing up to where it needs to be.
You want to give us an update on the medical arts incident yesterday?
Sure. During this time, there was also someone who arrived on campus that was upset, and I'm not quite sure at the details, but was threatening one of our staff members in one of our clinics. And so we did ask for JPD to come on scene because they were threatening to kill this person. And so we had that going in the middle of this as well. But I haven't followed up with JPD yet. My understanding is that they mitigated that situation quickly. And there was no employees harmed in that incident.
Mitigate is kind of a pregnant word. It was peacefully.
It was peacefully, yes.
Yeah.
They made contact with the person that made the threat. There's some extenuating circumstances that I can't go into here, but we'll follow up with that. But yes, everybody peacefully left the campus.
Right. Any questions on that? Thank you, Angela.
Well, following that.
Yeah.
I just interrupt for a moment. We just need approval on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we'd done that. So is motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so now,
Okay. CFO report. So we have to bury the lead, but Andrew and the accounting team worked very diligently. And we are now caught up on our financial reporting. So I'm reporting on February and March.
that's excellent.
Yeah.
That is a long time coming too.
Yes.
Thank
A
you.
lot of hard work went into that one.
Certainly longer than I've been on the board.
Yeah.
We were lucky if we got only 2 months behind.
Yeah.
In the early days.
Well, we are moving to that 10-day close. So this is our new term. February was a strong operational month. It did have a significant loss, but that was due to the number of business days, the number of calendar days within February. So it wasn't less coffee in the coffee cup, it was just smaller cup. So it does show a loss. March was also a strong operational month, and that had a positive profit margin. And that did some catch up year to date. Year to date, we are still showing a $460,000 net loss total. So we do have some ground to make up, but April is going very strongly. And we anticipate May and June being some of our summer months with higher census to be very strong. We expect to see that flip to positive here very shortly. See, inpatient and outpatient volumes were strong in February and March. The March gross patient revenue was 28.2 million. That exceeded budget by 21.6%. So this is our expansion in clinics. It is our additional clinics, Bartlett Family Medicine, Glacier Peds. And it is also the increased census that we're seeing earlier in the year because of those expansions that are flowing through the hospital. inpatient and outpatient. So we are having higher census in the hospital this year than if we look at it last year. We exceeded 25 beds 8 times in January. We had 4 times in prior year, June. Significantly more volume this year than what we have previously. So the strategy is working. Contractuals, year to date March was slightly higher than budget, but it is flat to our expected collection. So we are keeping it at that 45.6% contractual rate. And a little bit more on the March operational net loss of 460. We've had some significant headwinds that we needed to elaborate on. We're addressing through various means. We'll talk about those in a minute. So we all know about the rural health demonstration funding that rolled off. That's 4.2 million a year. Year to date, that would account for a $3.15 million decrease in profit and cash. So it's something that we continue to look at and work on, but we don't have a solution as yet. And that is part of the headwind, part of the work of what we're overcoming. We also have the wildfire court interim reimbursement rate reduction last year of 1.2 million. That was that space between July 1st and October 19th until Office of Rate Review increased our wildfire court reimbursement rate per bed resident. So those two together are 4.65. And then we
That gap, like several month gap, we just to reconfirm, the dip is because we didn't get retro reimbursement for the rate change.
that is correct. We requested retroactive reimbursement to see that it was denied. And then Bartlett Glacier Peaks, that has a startup operating loss of 456,000. That we will bring back as we start to bill for them. We're getting contracts in place. So that is a temporary timing issue. But if we take the 3.15 and the 1.2, we're at 4.65 plus the roughly 500, we're looking at 5.1 million. So the 5.1 and a $500,000 net loss, we're really looking at what our system was producing. If we take apples to last year, would be closer to 5.05 million. So what we're seeing is revenue pressures that we need to address. Reimbursement rates and structure, but there's nothing operationally going on with the system. We're operating at a very high level and doing a good job of that. There's nothing structurally. Some of those reimbursement rates that we're looking at are doing evaluations with Strabag. So we're doing our SFOA, which is our Strategic Financial Operational Assessment, and that's to provide very targeted, targeted information on any improvements or opportunities that are within our system. We are also doing the analysis for rural health clinic and provider-based billing for rural clinics. And looking at critical access hospital. Now we know we've exceeded our bed counts for the year. So there's other factors that go into that, but they're looking at the numbers and the analysis behind that. They expect to have that done in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have a report to bring forward. I did ask them to look at scoping out the CCBHC program that the Department of Health brought up. And they had not heard of that, so they're going to look into it and give us a scope of work to let us know if it's worth pursuing doing a full analysis.
What's this? What is CC?
It's a critical community behavioral health clinic model. So it's to push behavioral health out, but they do have a rural health community clinic component to it. It's not something that's been very popular in Alaska. It's fairly new program. And then we did the high level evaluation on the head model and found that it does not work in this environment. That we have asked to be communicated back to the Department of Health, as they had brought that forward as something to review. We did that.
With Starwater.
Yes, they gave us the high level, Eric, who is their principal, did that for the, state of Pennsylvania. And he was able to very quickly do some back of the envelope math that said the average rated reimbursement increased 2.5% per annum. And our expenses increase an average of 5%. So we would be upside down year one and continue upside down until the horizon out, which would be next. So it just worked. And then the next piece is balance sheet. So any questions on income statement?
Any questions for Angela on income statement? I don't have any either. You know, it's later in the packet and it is the new report that we have on the clinic. And do you want to talk about that now or later?
Sure.
So page 28, Sharon, is where we are.
You talking
And
about BFM?
what's that?
BFM, family medicine?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a new tab. I asked her to, ask Angela to include this for us so we can start tracking it. So just kind of help get us centered in terms of, I mean, we're really talking about 3 months of revenue, more or less, that's in here now. Is that about fair?
There was some catch-up revenue with
There-
our family medicine. So we're talking about 7 months of productivity since we took them over on September 2nd.
Okay.
So there was catch-up in that total number. So within 6 months, we had just barely turned profitable from an operational perspective. So this is before contractuals and before overhead allocation. This is just pure operational, which is how we typically look at our clinics. And at 7 months, we became a more sustainable, profitable model. So year to date, March, we are looking at a profit at Bartlett Family Medicine of $165,000.
So will you allocate costs to it?
We have not looked at them at that level yet. We can get there when we start getting contractuals and overhead pushed down at a more granular level. At this point, we've only done it by total service line.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine if maybe starting in FY 27, then it's a kind of the
That
thought.
should be feasible.
Yeah. So how many FTEs are we talking about? And the salaries and wage number of docs, number of doc staff.
So we brought Bartlett Family Medicine into the practice with 4 physicians. We are now up to 6.
Okay.
And continuing to expand. The support staff would have been what they came in with. I think we had added 2 headcount to support the additional 2 positions. They're running a little bit leaner.
Are they all physicians? Are there any advanced practice providers
There is, yes,
separate from the 6 physicians, or is that
4.
medical staff?
It may be 3 physicians that are,
Yeah, so physician is just a generic.
yes.
But if I'm adding it,
Yeah, great.
12 the head count's 12, is that right? Just list off 4
Yeah.
plus 2 plus,
4 plus 2 gets us to 6.
that's on the docs, right? But the non-doc staff, including the APP is,
So I believe of the 4, one of those is an APP.
oh, I see, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and all of them are housed out at the family practice campus, right?
Yes. So Sarah and her team did a remarkable job in turning that around and streamlining it. More work to do, but quite a bit has been accomplished.
Yeah.
At some point, will the Starwater's looking at the impact of doing rural health clinic with this, the financial impact on that
And they're
will be
looking,
shared.
correct. They are looking at it 2 ways. One is rural health clinic, and the other is rural health clinic and then provider-based billing. So they're separating the 2, and then we
To
just
see where she's.
and that report will be coming back.
You guys know what's the limit on rural health clinic population? You know, there's so many things that Juneau just is a little bit
I don't
above.
think, we'd have to get briefed by Stroudwater on that.
It wasn't so much the population, it's the access to another hospital within a certain driving distance, which
Oh. Gotcha.
we are, you can't drive anywhere else. Boats and marine transit don't count.
And the area would have to be designated as rural, which is, I think the federal law rule is 50,000 in a specific area.
Yeah, okay, so it's not the same as the USDARD's got, I think its limit is like 15 or 18,000 people or something like that to be called rural to qualify for a lot of these programs, so.
Yeah, we're already designated as rural. That's not the barrier.
Gotcha. Al?
So the positions there were three, I think there were three positions when we started, right? And now there's a couple more people that are on the horizon. There's an internist.
But yeah, we have two that will be joining our team this fall too. So we've added Dr. Boss, who started in October, Dr. Butner, who started a couple weeks ago. We have Dr. Gross, who will be joining us around the 1st of September. He's the internal med doctor, and he'll be splitting his time between the clinic and our hospitalist group. We're out working on one additional one, but we haven't had a signed contract yet. So
What specialty is the additional person?
the one, it's going to be FP, family practice.
Thank you.
So we have the room out there. That was part of the reason I was curious about housing. I mean, these are a lot of new bodies. I'm just thinking, it's not a huge building. We've got the room to house all these folks out there, Chuck.
Well, we're looking at that, Max. I mean, that's we might have to look at on campus or maybe another space as well.
Yeah.
Well, we have the chiropractor's office out there. Do we have a long-term contract with that organization? Or can that be used by us in the near term?
You're talking about the Jordan Creek.
No, I'm talking about in our.
Oh, in the building. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the contract, Hal.
That's not necessary.
Okay.
Accounts receivable. Accounts receivable has increased 2.8 million in March over February. Cash increased 1.5 million. The big driver there is elections are lagging. So we have taken some very specific actions to address that. We have created a denials dashboard to highlight any issues with payers, trend them over time, and also look at big categories and reasons for denials. So we can start drilling into what's causing those and then problem solve those process issues. And then the other thing we have done is move to a weekly RCM meeting where we are doing a full process mapping from beginning to end of the patient journey, and then identifying any opportunities throughout those processes to improve the patient experience and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our teams on collecting copays and deductibles up front, making sure the patient understands what their charges are going to be, ensuring we're price transparent compliant, and then streamlining anything that has that kind of opportunity to move the needle, really.
Maybe just pause there. Questions on the AR? Hey, I'd like to just focus on this because we're now sitting at 113 days in AR where that's, 2.5 times the benchmark. And it's a significant increase. And can you talk a little bit about growth pressure that's driving this? My concern is, as you know, when the older these things get, the harder collections become on AR, right? And so talk about timeliness, just working through all these additional billings. You've brought in now hospice and home care in-house.
Hospice and home care has been a bit of a transition. That was on the end of March that we made that transition. And, the team has had to learn that piece and learn that system. So that does take a little bit of time. We're also upgrading our matrix care for above our court. And they have been working on that piece as well. So we have asked a lot of our billing team. But RCM doesn't begin with the billing team with anything. So if there's problems in our collections, then it could be a host of things through that system. And that's what we have to address because it is a very significant and material change in our days of cash on hand, as well as our days of AR. So we are looking at it holistically from that first touch point. If we are not collecting co-pays and deductibles up front, the longer we take to collect, the less we collect. Those are just statistics. So we need to figure out how we can solve that problem. And some of our initial findings are everything from them using 3 different systems to do registration and collection. And those disparate systems take time. It's not pleasant for the patient. It's not pleasant for the person registering them. So how do we solve that? Because if we collect more upfront, we can solve a lot of things in the back end. And then we don't have our billing team chasing stuff that could have been collected up front. They can focus on working data.
So do we need, I'm not saying bodies will make the difference, but are we adequately staffed in that function, given the change that we, both on the admission side and the AR collection side?
We are if we leverage technology and fix the process.
Feel confident about that.
Yes,
Okay. So we're gonna see this come back down.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Any more questions on AR? Thank you, Angela.
Wildfire Court, it had both operational activity and temporary capacity restraints. They had the 8 beds reopened on April 9th, so it was after this March reporting period. But those beds are back open, and we do have the census going back up in Wildfire Court. The only other item on here, I guess we have that on item 9, but I just restated the monthly budget because we did flatten out with that very large physical inventory adjustment in June.
Yeah.
That caused a big net loss for June, and that was spread out across the 12 months because that is, we're accruing for it now and we're doing something more. We're not letting it mount up and have a big adjustment down. So
Yeah.
that's the only restatement. The entire total budget amount for net profit that's expected has not changed.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you doing that. And we're on 37 now. And will you look at this again as year end, once we get kind of the actuals under our belt as far as just your reallocation? I mean, reallocating, it'd be nice to, by the time we start FY 27, to have that budget, that inter-period budget locked down, right? But, between now and then, changes are good. And I just want to, I guess my goal around this is to make sure that we feel that we've got a good yardstick. You know what I mean?
Well, we know that when the first day a budget is completed, it's already wrong, right? That's
Yeah.
the nature of a budget.
Yeah.
But as we build out, I'm in the process of building out the module that we purchased in NetSuite, which is the planning and budgeting module. So if we want to do reforecast and additional pro forma budgets that aren't official, then we'll have that capability in the next few months.
Okay. And to be clear, I don't expect us to, hit the budget, as you say, it's wrong on day one, but, it is, we've had in the past, this year included, so many moving pieces that we really, when you look at the budget, you go, well, you have to discount this, that, and the other, because a lot of that, as we call it, pacing, we didn't really have the pacing down, some of these other changes. And I want to hit the ground with something that we can look back to when we get to September of next year and say, okay, this changed, this changed, this changed. And that's why, we're either meeting it or not. So, because, as we know, if you don't have solid monthly reporting as an entity, you're completely lost, right? And so it's all about, just improving. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, Angela. I just want to just make sure that we're, headed towards a really solid kind of budgeting tool that we can use going forward.
Well, I'll tell you the good news on that. So part of that budgeting and planning module is we can do monthly variance analysis, and you can put notes in there, so we can track that throughout the year. So when we get to budgeting, there's no guessing. We can look back and see what the outliers were.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. That it?
That's it.
Any other questions? I've got a couple more I just want to go over with you, and I think Kim actually might have an answer for one of these, but. And I want to start on page 36, which is hospice, that average daily census. You know, we've seen that average daily census kind of tick up a little bit. Kim, you know, that it does seem to be getting better. Is it?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Aaron, who's the interim director right now, who's done a fantastic job streamlining some processes, scheduling to allow more flexibility with its scheduling and also being able to add more to the schedule than what it had been before. So I believe that's why we're seeing that increase.
Yeah, that's great. But the hospice side isn't. I mean, we're not seeing, you know, that there's that goal of through education, we're going to increase our census and enroll people earlier. We're not kind of seeing that yet, are we?
Not yet. They actually had several recent deaths recently, like 3 in a row. So that also decreases that length of stay on the hospice side. But they do have several outreach commitments that they're going to do throughout the summer to try to reach out to providers and do training and do all that stuff. And so he is currently looking for opportunities where they can give flyers and kind of be there to answer questions to the community. General.
And on the hospice line, the FY27 commitment from JCF, could you just share with us the information you have there?
We received the information on the updated JCF commitment, and they have taken it up to 61,000 for the year. There is no guarantee of future commitments, but they have averaged 50,000 in prior years. This is a slight uptick, but they are also filling financial pressures.
And would you just touch on the interaction you and I have had with end of life and with the JCF board, Bob Bartholomew, and just kind of give a recap to everybody else about where we are on that.
Absolutely. So Max and I have worked closely with the Foundation for End of Life. We have met with their president, as long as some of the members on that board. And I serve on that board as well. And then we've met with Bob Bartholomew, who is also on JCF. We've talked about different ways to come together and help support hospice. Foundation for End of Life Care is interested in contributing for education for physicians and nursing staff, as well as educating the community and providing funds in that support and that method. JCF is more direct contribution. We could use the 61,000 to support staff costs, including nursing salaries. So those are the two ways. We've talked about additional ways to work together and find ways to generate more funding and discover more pathways to help do that. We haven't settled on anything yet, but there's some good ideas coming out of it, and we'll continue to work that to help bridge the gap on where we want home health and hospice to be and where they're at.
Add, I mean, there seems to be some genuine interest in really moving the total contribution from JCF. Is that fair? I mean, would you characterize it the same as me, or is that a more hopeful on my part?
I think there's been some expressed interest in increasing that.
Yeah.
Given the reductions in contributions JCF has recently experienced from city budget cuts, I don't know how feasible that's going to be.
Sure.
He was, Bob was instrumental in helping us get to the 61,000.
It's great to have this.
It is very appreciated.
Yeah, Bruce Wyrock, too. I mean, Bruce is
Yes.
excellent. Okay.
Yes, hi.
So
Well, I think Foundation for End of Life Care has lost one of its big funding sources, hasn't it?
That was the case, they had replaced that source with an alternative.
Okay, but then also, I think historically, the foundation's been very interested in capital. Things. I mean, for example, when I was there, we bought a car for hospice. They just didn't want to get involved in funding, sorry about that, get involved in funding operations.
Right,
They're in the masters, the needs for things, computers, cars. That's something they're still interested in funding.
They've expressed openness to that. However, we don't have big needs for equipment in hospice at this time. So if it's something that becomes a need later on, we can certainly pursue it.
So one last question that I had, and it's on the Strawwater work around critical access. What is the period that they're evaluating in this report? What, they do it over a period of time. They look at, your total inpatient days and what makes up those inpatient days. Give us a little bit more detail on how they're approaching it.
If I may, Andrew, you prepared the data. Do you mind speaking to that?
Yeah.
Yes, they requested 5 years of data, ending fiscal year 25, and they also did request, projections for fiscal 26.
Okay. And I guess until we have their analysis of that, we're really kind of sitting on our hands. So, but it sounds like it'll be pretty quick.
Right. They have done the work. We've had several interactions at follow-up, and they did indicate they believe in the next couple of weeks they'll have patient starts.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. I know it's a lot of work. Anything else?
I'm interested.
Yeah, yeah.
Question to that.
Sure.
When we get the reports, will they be joining us to present after senior leadership has had the opportunity to take a look at them?
We can certainly.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think, Pat, but I think it would be good for them to present.
absolutely. Yeah. To finance, they're thinking, or what? Or to full board? Finance.
Yeah,
Let them come in here, we can get into it in some more detail maybe. And then
that would be
if we
my,
want to take it to the board, we can. Yeah, after Joe and Angela cheat on it. Joe, if you want to add some.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that through the strategic financial assessment they're doing, they do have another on-site visit, and we just coordinate it with finance so we can present at that.
Yeah, gotcha. Great. So again, Angela, thank you very much to you and Andrew and all your staff for, I really feel like we're really getting on top of things on the finance side. I'm sure the AR thing is getting your closest attention, right? But the reporting side really is huge improvements since you've been here. The guy that you took over from kind of left you, I've got a box there. I understand. Thank you for all the hard work on that, really. It's nice to have, and there might be months that we're not just 15 days after the close of the most recent month that we're getting this stuff that's, just overall the reporting is very consistent now, we're making progress. So thank you on that. Joe, master facility plan.
Thank you, Max. So in the packet, you'll have a few documents. You have an action memo that I put together talking about the issue. So this is with respect to the rural behavioral health building and what the future plans for that will be. We've discussed this through our master facility planning discussions. We discussed it at planning earlier this month, and they asked me to bring this forward to plan or to finance to move forward. So the current plan is to transition the behavioral health, the rural building into an infusion center on the first floor, clinic space in the second floor, with outpatient psychiatric on the third floor. We do have 1.5 million that was included in the FY27 CIP budget for this project. As we move into this, we'll have to go through a designing and cost estimating phase so we can submit for a certificate of need for this project as well. So we have to do some of these things in sequence so we can get final approval. So with that, I also have included in here kind of the phasing of it, the timing, how long this project will take, the floor plans for what it will look like when it's done. There could be some tweaks as we get into design where things end up lying, but I don't foresee material changes to that. I guess with that, I'd open up to questions and see if anyone has any comments on this.
Joe, could you, on page 39 of a couple pages down there on the, one after this, yeah, that's 38, next one down, this timeline. So the interior demo and construction, we do not have, do we have any funds that we can apply to that yet, Joe, or no?
Well, we have the 1.5 in the CIP right now, and then we also put 1.5 in our capital budget. I think 1.5. Angela might have to correct my number. I think we budgeted in 2 different locations this year. The question being how fast we can get design, cost estimates, and the CON approved, Max.
Yeah, okay, so when I look at this, the $7 million that's kind of in a darker orange section, does that include the 1.5? I assumed it was separate from the 1.5.
That would be, the 1.5 would be a piece of that 7. And as you remember,
okay.
when this was presented, the 7 is kind of a worst case scenario. They projected a complete overhaul.
Okay, so that's all of the year one. That 7 million is the kind of the 1.5 plus, kind of a worst case on that. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I think they overestimate how fast the state can get a CON completed, though, to be totally honest.
Well, that was my other question. I mean, is it die in the wool that we're going to have a CON for this or what?
Well, we'll have to start down that road and get into the project before we know for certain. We have to put that before the state through a formal request.
Yeah, okay. Because I thought it was like if it was new competing services or something along those lines for a CON. No, is it more broad than that?
I think it's a little broader than that. Gail knows the rules much better than I do. I think as we look at we could argue it both ways, I think, and so it kind of fell on the line on whether it'd be required or not.
Yeah,
but we have to have
yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, we still, once we get design and cost, we actually submit for a formal decision on it, and they'll tell us whether one's required or not.
Yeah, okay. And is that Division of Health? Who is that actually says that?
I think it's DOH, yeah.
Any questions for Joe on this?
I would also comment that this was something that we also submitted as part of the rural health transformation.
Yeah.
Or we will be in year 2 as well. I guess we didn't put it for year 1. We'll put it into year 2 as a funding request.
And when is that due? And when do we hear whether that's been funded in whole or in part?
That's a very good question, Max. They haven't got back on our LOI for year 1. This would technically fall into a year 2 project, so we'd have to wait for their second application opening.
Okay, great. Questions for Joe? Anything more, Joe?
Nope. I guess there's there's options, recommendation, and a suggested motion.
Brent, you want to take the suggested motion?
Yes.
Assuming you support it?
Move Bartlett Regional Hospital Finance and Audit Committee to approve the budgeted amount of 1.5 million to start the design and cost estimates for the remodel of the Aurora building remodel as presented and move to the Board of Directors for consideration.
A second.
Great, thank you. So that's in your plate now, Madam Chair.
Looking forward to it.
So in case we lose you, we're going to give the committee a baby update, Joe?
It's still progressing. No baby as of today. We're still hopeful. I'm hoping that it shows up tomorrow. It'd be nice, but as I told Anita, my wife booked me a flight back every day next week just to pit. So if the baby comes late, I might be coming back later.
Well, it's a good thing you got a travel agent in the family, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So item 8, supplemental. Do you want to kick this off or do you want me to kick it off? And is Angie Flick joining us
She is.
Oh, hi, Angie. Maybe she's joining us.
I am joining. Sorry,
Oh, that's all
it
right.
took a moment to ask me questions if I wanted to participate.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. So at the assembly retreat last Saturday, there was a slide that was included, that, I don't know if we have that slide, but it was kind of a projection for the end of the FY, and it showed Bartlett exceeding, our budget by $3.6 million. And I guess there was some concern around the fact that we had exceeded our budget. And I wanted to add this to the agenda, and Angie, I thank you very much for coming today, because I want to make sure, we've been working like dogs to really, improve Bartlett's credibility, both with the assembly and in the community. And I want to be sure that, we're not running afoul of something. So I guess I wanted to understand a little bit of the lead up to that slide, and, where we stood in terms of, have we run afoul of something, or did we miss a step somehow? And so I guess, I don't know, Angie, is that you, or is that Angela?
I'm happy to take it if you want, Angela,
Yeah.
or.
Yeah, go ahead, Angie.
Okay, thank you. I can't see who all's in the room because you're a little tiny square, and that's okay. So I think a couple of important things, as an empowered board of the assembly, making decisions about operations of Bartlett, you have a lot of authority. One piece of authority you don't have is increasing the budget. Through the budget process, you guys have worked through that this spring. You've approved through your finance committee and through your full Bartlett board a budget that you're putting forward for 27. The assembly right now is working through that process. That budget will get approved in June, so you'll know what your parameters are for that budget. You've built it, so you know the assumptions around it. If you are going to embark upon a journey which will lead you to a position where you're, adding a bunch of positions, going to expend over that authority, nobody on the Bartlett board has the authority to change the budget amount. So from a high dollar value, that would need to go to the assembly. So if you were going to embark upon something that's, you're going to add FTEs, you're going to add expenditures above and beyond what you had planned, before you really set out on that, the appropriate thing to do would be to have the Bartlett board approve a budget adjustment that then goes to the assembly for their approval. So you've got the full authority to engage in whatever that journey is. And so the information on that slide, when I brief the assembly on where are we on 26, how are things going, I always try to give them both the general fund side that they're highly concerned about, but also the non-general fund side, which includes some budgets that are overseen by boards such as yours, and some that are overseen by the city manager. And so that information came out of the information that you all provided at the joint meeting that I don't remember the date, that we got through your finance group. And so, we, simply consolidated that information and gave them a full picture. And so, certainly if decisions that have been made through the year are now going to put you in an over budget position, you certainly need to rectify that by going through your own board to get approval for a budget adjustment and then getting that in front of the assembly. Going forward, you should just think about anything that you're engaging in that's going to take you beyond that budget authority. You really should get the approval to expend more before you commit, commit legally, right? So purchase orders or agreements or whatever are in place that would lead you to that over budget position.
Angela?
Thank you, Angie. And the 3.5 million, so everybody can kind of put their head around that. is really when we expanded clinics and acquired chronic family medicine and Glacier Feeds. It's those operational costs that are causing that $3.5 million overage. So it's trying to tighten up that process as we move forward.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it doesn't matter if you project you'll have revenue to cover that. It's just if you're gonna exceed what the budget is.
It's expensive.
It's just purely expenses.
Yeah.
So no one's looking at the revenue.
Yeah, Angie, I appreciate that, and I want to just, I guess I want to just kind of go back and revisit it and the interactions that we've had in the assembly about this overall, and also kind of the difference between an estimate of what your total expenditures are going to be and what your actual expenditures are going to be. And so the assembly approves the purchase of family practice, correct? Joe, is that right? Joe, are you there?
Well, if you remember, Max, we purchased the building back in 22 or 23, is my understanding. That predates me.
Okay.
And then our board approved the purchase of their assets, which would have fell within the scope of our capital budget, or actually in our operating budget.
Yeah. So I guess, Angie, my question for you is, if the assembly approves a total line, correct? They don't approve the line item, but the appropriation is a total, is that right?
So, Max, you're correct that you are held accountable to the total expenditure budget, and that's typically by fund. So they are approving your operating funds expenditure budget for the year.
Yeah, the total, right? So isn't there I guess I obviously I had some back and forth with Angela and Joe when I first heard this, and there was some back and forth, I think, about the timing of when we needed to go to the assembly. And I think that's the nut of my question. And is, just when you start thinking about doing something or potentially you're going to add to the cost, if you're not sure what those total costs are, you really don't have a supplemental appropriation yet to go back to the assembly with, correct? I mean, I guess
I guess,
when do you know?
I would argue that if your overage this year is because you are adding services, and you're generally performing all of the other things that you expected to do as an organization that made up your base budget, it would seem appropriate at the start of that, if you can estimate how much that new expense for offering those new services are, that would be the most ideal time to come back to the assembly to say, hey, we are going to embark on these services. We are going to incur more operating expenses. We think we need $4 million to get there. And that, in your case, as was pointed out by somebody, includes additional revenue as well as additional expense. So you can make the argument from like a business model perspective that you're going to expend more, but you have the revenue to cover it, but you do need the authority to spend more. If in a different situation, Max, you guys have stopped doing things, so the assumptions you use to build your budget aren't valid anymore, you're closing things down, you're spending less in other areas, and you think it's going to be a wash between these things, then you may not need a supplemental appropriation. But if the difference is in some ways size matters, right? So you guys have a large budget. Your expense budget for 26 is $157 million. You shouldn't go over that by any, right? Because that's the authority you have. But if through forecasting you think you're going to be, at 157 and $2, like, I don't know that that's a big deal, but $3.5 million is a large dollar value to be anticipating to be over budget.
I guess I would ask, so in some of the expansion that we've done, it's not been all at the same time. So in theory, we could come once a month if something, we could end up coming once a month if, depending on what our operations look like as we add providers. We estimate that this clinic will have 3 providers, but we're approached by other clinicians in town, other providers in town, which will expand it. So in theory, we could come every month. And that's what we should be doing? Is that what you're saying?
I think if your business is changing that radically every month where you're expanding, you can either have kind of a strategic plan, like we want to get 4 more providers for this clinic, and so we want to ask for budget authority to get to 4. That would give you like some space to get there. But if really you don't have an expectation that anything's going to change, and now something is changing and it's going to draw you over budget, then yes, I guess the answer to your question would be yes. You would be coming forward in every month and saying, wow, something significant changed. We're going to be offering this service. And, again, I don't know that I would come for $25, but, if adding another service provider means that, okay, we're going to need $25,000 more, then, I would think that you might want to consider that. But I would hope that also kind of in your strategic planning of where you want your clinics to go, you have an expectation of like where you're trying to get to, and you could also build some budget authority based on those estimates.
Joe, have we gone over, I mean, you've got some history on the finance side. Have we done supplemental appropriations in the past during your tenure? And what was the timing and how did you handle those in the past?
Well, back when I was CFO and when I was controller, we did have some supplemental appropriations. My recollection, it was always kind of a June exercise. After the assembly closed out the budget process, we go back and do a supplemental appropriation for the year when we had definitive numbers. We knew what we were going to be over, so that's what we went back with.
Yeah, gotcha. And so what we're hearing from you, Angie, is that's letting some of these, there's a communication with the assembly versus actually putting pen to paper and doing an estimate of the costs and then getting. And, I just think about the meeting that we had with the assembly in February or March or whenever that was, that, we talked about our plans that these were, I spoke to them. I know they were included in that. We brought these up in 27 with them and went over those, these ideas about identifying additional revenue sources to be able to do this. So it's, I think we've been very transparent around, the fact that we've been pursuing these ideas. And in the past, when we've had these supplementals, and it's kind of my recollection too, and in fact, I think the CDJ has done this in the past too. You get through the budget season, you look to see where you are in terms of your year-end estimates. And if you felt like you needed to go get a supplemental appropriation, you did it. And so has something changed there? To me, it feels like something's changed. And I guess that's what I want to make sure that we don't get afoul of you or the assembly, but it feels like, in that chart, because when I look at that chart, I go, man, there is a lot of uncertainty in that number. That number could be way high. Just, the PERS reports that come out, alone can affect that. And there's so many moving pieces and things you don't know that you'd wait. So that's what I guess I want to get to is if we're doing something, I want to make sure that we're doing it.
So let me speak to a couple of things you talked about, Max. So PERS is one that we are usually going to do a supplemental appropriation for because we have no idea what that on behalf payment is, and it comes like in August. And so we don't see that adjustment until later. We know that that's going to be a supplemental that's going to be done once we know what that is. So, I think that piece, we've communicated with the assembly. They recognize the timing of that. And that's not really decisions that we're making in operations, right? And I think to your point, yeah, if we come, it can be quite normal to come to the end of the year and wow, fuel has skyrocketed and freight now has all of these extra components and, where we could ship something up here for $100 last year, now it costs $300. So if we find ourselves a little bit over budget because of those things, I think it's okay to do the supplemental at the end of the year. What feels different about at least what I have heard about this overage this year is that there was a decision to go forward and expand services and to bring on additional costs without the budget authority to go forth and do that. And so I think that's where the difference is, Max. If it's, you know what, pharmaceuticals went up a little bit, and so we ended up being a little bit over budget here or there, that's less of less concerning from my perspective than, wow, we're going to be millions of dollars over budget because we decided to open new clinics and expand our services. Where like that could have been, that authority should have probably been given on the front side because you're expanding your services, you're anticipating bringing on additional costs supported by additional revenue. So like it's an easy thing for I think the assembly to be able to digest and approve, but it expanding services like that isn't a reaction to the environment. And so I guess that's where I would kind of draw a distinction in like when do you ask and when do you go to get that approval? Does that make sense to you? Does that resonate at all?
I completely understand it. I guess, there's a difference between communicating with the assembly about plans of the hospital and lining up the dollars to make sure that we've met the legal requirement for budget authority. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And when you tie the two together, which is what you're doing, in my view, it kind of is, it's superfluous. I think it's an extra step that I'm not sure is necessarily needed. We could easily sit down with the assembly, for example, in October or November and say to them at that point, hey, or, we could meet with them even informally and say, hey, we're working on this. We think it's great. We've got a business plan around it. We think it's really excellent for the hospital. Isn't this great? And once we have our costs all nailed down, we'll come back to you and get an approval of that. And in fact, I think that's what happened. And so, I don't want to debate it, and I appreciate your point. But don't get me wrong, I completely appreciate your point. I just, I think that number that was on the page was an estimate that was just an estimate. I mean, but anyway, we appreciate you coming, and we'll try better next time.
All right, I'm happy to help and be a resource as required.
Thank you very much. Any further on this, Angela? Yeah.
I would just say that you can expect us to come forward in the next, in May or June, if we're ready for May, with a request for additional supplemental appropriation.
Yeah, I mean,
I think given the size of the anticipated variance, that would be very much be appropriate.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
We kind of went through the FY27 budget. Is that right? And Joe, do we have anything on housing update this month?
I had reached out to Wayne prior to this meeting, trying to get an update on our survey for the Bartlett House expansion. I didn't receive I left him a message and didn't receive a phone call back, so I have no update on that. I can tell you that we did procure one additional apartment. All of the ones we had rented out were full. And so this is before we even get to the busy season. And so
Okay.
there's concerns, and I'll have something. I'll move to have something before you guys next month.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's and this is going to have to go back through the CDJ procurement process, correct? And that what we figured out since it's city owned.
Yeah, this will definitely have to go back through that process, but I need a number to even start it.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Committee comments and questions.
I have one comment or question. I met with Joe earlier this week, or was it last week? I can't remember. Anyway, one of the things that came up was I was talking about the cruise ship head tax. And does Bartlett get any of those funds? And I was told no. not currently, but there have been attempts. And I'm wondering if, on a financial side, has there ever been an analysis, or is there a way to prepare to do it after this cruise season, to look at what is the impact of the cruise industry on Bartlett financial? So that we have really good numbers to present. And, you know, I think there is this idea, well, those cruise ship passengers come in, they pay, you get reimbursed, and it helps the hospital. I talked to somebody, and that was the answer I was given. Well, all those extra people help the hospital. And maybe that's true, but I would love to know, is it true? And I know if you have to hire travelers, there's more expenses, and case management, dealing with getting people out of here. I think there's probably some real expenses. And I
Gearing
think,
up for the ED, right?
yeah, if we had real data, I think it would be much easier to go to submit for a portion of that head tax. So that's.
I would just tag on to that, our ability to collect, because particularly with the foreign nationals who come through, it's much easier if we're billing.
And Medicare Advantage, I'm sure, is a nightmare.
So
I think it's probably.
that would be an interesting part of that analysis.
So it seems like if there would be a process in place now to collect, to make sure, you know, there's a system for documenting that, we'd be prepared next winter to then take it to whatever the cruise ship tax is.
Yeah.
We did a high-level analysis with our external accountants, DZA. And based on some high-level assumptions, they looked at the volumes of that and what our census was on cruise ship visitors, and calculated out an impact to the system with case management and travel arrangements of 600,000. That was submitted for when the submission was open. We can certainly look at doing a more detailed analysis similar to what we do for our cost report to try and drill into that better as we go through this cruise ship season.
So you submitted something that said the impact is 600,000 and the response was, we're going to give you zero.
I haven't got the response.
Oh, well, there is a proposed list
Okay.
and Bartlett's not on the list. So
I got nothing to.
yeah, I just looked at the list and I was like, wow, Bartlett's not on the list. Is there a way to do that? And what I was told was Bartlett hasn't done a good job of documenting the costs of the cruise industry.
We can certainly look at getting a more detailed view of that.
Yeah,
It's a great thought. I mean, you know, for
Yeah.
sure.
it is
Have a
600.
reduction.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a longer term discussion.
There was then, I don't know if it was during your term, but at some point in the past, there was an analysis that was done around this for the hospital. It was years ago. And my recollection was at the time was it was a net benefit. The cruise industry created a net financial benefit to Bartlett. But that was so long ago, I could be wrong. It'd be absolutely worth going through and figuring out if we've got some unreimbursed costs for sure. Okay, anything else? The only comment I had is our timing of our meetings. Angela, would you talk about the moving back by a week question?
Absolutely. So the request was to move against the week a week, so that we can ensure that we are reporting on the prior month. And that's what we have.
Is this a week back or is this, so like this time, the third week
Yes, third Friday.
would be this way?
So the first happens or May 1st is a Friday, which would make the third Friday just the 15th. So does that mean we want to shoot for the 22nd then for our May meeting? Which would be the 4th? Yeah, because that would still be our board meeting would be the 26th, right? Yeah, that in May.
It's the fourth, so that would be it.
Oh, it'd be the 4th, so it'd be the 19th.
It is the fourth,
Oh, no, it'd be the 26th, yeah. Right.
fourth Tuesday of every month.
So does the 26th or 22nd, I'm sorry, work for everybody for meeting?
Does that, I guess, Sharon, is that enough time to get is the time?
I
Good to
will.
Okay,
I will double check the calendar and then I can send out an updated meeting invite to everyone.
and, we would have to be good about turning around the minutes. We could certainly put the packets and the financial reports in, but the minutes are
Yeah,
what will be the tight squeeze, like, in general, because it's the Tuesday after, it would be the Tuesday after our meeting.
not to excuse ourselves, but Sharon does a great job turning those minutes around. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so the 22nd of May then.
Because we usually post the board packets on the Friday before,
Yeah.
same day that we would be meeting.
Right, and if they have to go in as a draft, they go in as a draft, right?
They always go in as a draft,
Oh,
because they
yeah.
don't get approved until
Yeah,
the following meeting.
right.
But, I mean, my understanding is that it is possible, as long as we post 24 hours before the meeting, to add a document to the posting,
Yeah, that's correct.
but,
Yeah.
we would have to do that on Monday.
Okay. Okay, it is 1:11. Unless there's anything more, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Did you have a good flight down there?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
This dog.